Start recording. Last time we got together, remember I was trying out my new real estate shirts? They're working very well. I highly recommend getting some of these. Super fun. I have a bunch of different ones. Some say I'm your homegirl. Some say like list, sell, eat, sleep, repeat, stuff like that. So super fun. If you guys want to be comfortable during the summer, which is what's going to be my goal, maybe I just throw on like a blazer over these. Definitely a good way to advertise when you're out there walking around and just out in the wild. Probably not for open houses, but definitely for showings and stuff like that. So today's topic is super fun. We are going to be talking about all of the steps that it takes in order to list a property and all of the documents involved in that process. So let me just share my screen here. All right, can everybody see this?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, so if you have done a transaction with me while you have been on in the Inner Circle Mentorship Program, you do know that I'm super OCD about organization, and I like to know everything that's going on so that at any time, if you guys need me to step in and help, you don't have to be explaining to me a lot of the backstory and back what's going on. I'm able to follow everything going on right in this note. I have one for the buyer and I have one for the seller. Today, we're going to be going over the seller process. So this is the note. Under contract as a seller, it's a listing. I put the address here. And this is also, you guys, this is, let me just share my whole screen actually. Can you guys see my whole screen now?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right, so this is just the listing. So when you guys go under contract, the assistants will make you a welcome email. This welcome email will have all of these things inside of it. So we put the address, we put the list price, the offer price, and then we have all of the contingency dates right here. The date the offer was accepted, the EMD, the due diligence, the appraisal, the loan, and the close of escrow. You guys need to be keeping track of all of these as the listing agent also. Now, when contingencies come up as a listing agent and you haven't heard anything from the buyer's agent, I don't typically reach out because that's on the buyer. And if the buyer comes back after any due diligence or anything, it's on their agent. It's actually in favor of your seller because if something happens and they want to back out or something happens and we can't come to an agreement, that's the buyer's agent's responsibility to keep track of all those things. So on this deal particularly, we did get a repair request from the buyer. My seller decided to fix everything. Then I put on the repairs request response, I said, we will fix items, all of the items except for the thing with the HVAC, because they had an HVAC request. I said, seller will, for number 4, seller will provide a report from the HVAC inspector. And that's all I said about the response to that. So as a buyer's agent, that agent should have looked at it and been like, actually, no, my buyer probably wants more than just a report, and we want to handle all of this within the due diligence period. Now, if a listing agent came to me with that repairs request response, I would be like, no, we're either going to extend due diligence until after we see this report and decide what we want to do. What if the AC was completely busted and it needed a completely new AC, and my buyer is now out of due diligence because this report came after due diligence? My buyers are going to be super upset, right? Well, turns out that they were not super happy with the report, but they came back to me on the 6th and were like, hey, we're going to extend due diligence. And I was going to be like, hey, you can't, you're past your due diligence period. So, and then they also ended up asking for a credit instead of the seller to repair everything. And all of that happened on the same day that my seller was having the vendor go out there and fix everything. So it's just like, no, like you're out of your due diligence. Everything has to happen within due diligence. And it is the buyer's agent's responsibility to keep track of that. But I like to know everything that's going on in my transaction. So I put it here anyways. Here is the contact information of my sellers, who the listing agent is, who the escrow officer is, our RTCs, and who the buyer's agent is. Actually, I can tell you one thing, that after that little scuffle with the buyer's agent and me just hard stopping her, she stopped texting me back.
Lauren, I can't hear you.
How about now?
Okay, yes.
The button, I hit the mute button on my new microphone. Sorry, technical difficulties. Where did you hear off last?
Right, look, everything you said right before that.
Okay. Okay, cool. So you heard that the buyer's agent had stopped responding to me because she was upset about the due diligence period and everything.
Yeah.
Okay,
that
cool.
was where it cut it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so that happens sometimes. You guys just be like me, keep a smile on, keep that attitude positive, and just roll with the punches. If you know you're in the right and you know that they're overstepping their boundaries and our past contingency periods, there's no reason to just keep smiling and be like, hey, I'm so sorry, but you know, your buyers passed their contingency period. This would have been something that we could talk about during your contingency period, but now we're just going to move forward. So they were backed into a corner. They had nothing that they could do. And here's the buyer's agent. Maybe I shouldn't put that up there. And then here's everything that you need to do. So we'll go back to this note. So first on every single transaction is, what's the first thing we need to do?
Duties owed.
Duties owed, and that brokerage fees. So our brokerage fees are $4.95. You can charge more if you want to. If anybody knew that, you could charge more. Sometimes I charge $7.99. Sometimes I charge $8.99, depending on what type of loan and stuff like that. VA loans, you can't charge a BAC fee, or you can't charge the extra commission. So you can't really you can have a BBA, but you can't charge them over. And some lenders are very strict about that. So depending on the client, what types of homes they're looking at, if we're looking at a new build, we do make that fee a little bit higher, especially if they're only offering like a $500 commission or something like that, which is Mosaic, Touchstone, builders like that. So the next thing I like to do is pull the title report and the prelim. If I'm going on a listing appointment, I do like to do this before I actually go on the listing appointment, and I like to do it right before we list. So, just to know if there's any liens on the home. If the seller has a lien on the home and isn't aware of it, this is something that you're going to have to put into their net sheet. Otherwise, if there's an HOA lien or a mechanics lien or anything like that on the listing, on the home, they need to know that, because if they don't find that out until close of escrow, they might blame you. They just might look at it as your fault and you're not going to net as much. And then they're going to be angry that they're paying you so much commission and stuff like that. So just best to know all of that stuff way ahead of time. But that's what a title report and a prelim is going to show you. It's going to show you all of the liens on the property and if there's any issues. Next is to gather any documents. If you have a listing and you're looking at RPR and you're seeing who owns that listing, you definitely want to see, is it in a trust or is it not? Is this going to be a deal that has to go to probate? Stuff like that. So if there are any death certificates or trust documents that need to be shown prior to close of escrow, sometimes the title companies will require the original certificates, and death certificates are always needed. So if these people have to go to the county or the city or another state and get these death certificates, you need to give them ample time to do that. So the originals will be needed in order to sign that home over. So that is something to note about needing those documents. Then we also need the listing agreement signed. There are some MLS rules on the timing and all of this. So you need to list the property. I believe it's within 7 days. Don't fact check. I mean, definitely fact check me on that one. But from time listing agreement assigned to actually posting it on the MLS needs to be in a certain amount of time. So I will double check on the actual amount of time for that for you. So if it's going to be like a month out, you can just post it as a coming soon, drum up some business, start talking to buyers and listing agents or buyers agents about this property. Right after I get the listing agreement signed, not before, right after I get the listing agreement signed, I actually start ordering the photos. Does anybody know why this is? Because I have had sellers who promise to list and sell, and I have paid for photos before, and then they don't end up selling. So I now tell my sellers, I say, I would love to start pre-marketing your home. In order to do that though, I need you to sign the sales agreement. Now, remember that I'm all about NLP and making words work better for you. So if I call it a sales agreement, it doesn't sound like a listing contract. It doesn't sound super scary. I do the same thing with buyers. I don't call it a mortgage application. I call it a mortgage questionnaire. So get used to using these different terms, guys, because they're not as scary as a mortgage application or a listing contract. It's just a sales agreement that I can actually go ahead and start marketing your property. So then I order the photos. They're usually returned within 24 hours after that date is set. And then I upload the photos. And then the next step is going to be the most tedious form that is filled out incorrectly about 90% of the time. But we as agents are not allowed to help or assist our clients on this at all. So this is the SRPDs. How many of you are familiar with the SRPDs? How many of you know what the number one question on the SRPDs that's answered incorrectly? Anyone?
Is it, can my agent help me with the form?
No, it's actually a question on this form, and it's literally 95% of the time filled out wrong. You as a seller, how many documents do you have to sign? Just sign a lot. Okay, just in a whole real estate transaction, there's just so many things you have to sign. So when a seller sees this form, look at all these boxes. Okay, and usually it's on the computer. This one actually wrote it out. But usually it's on the computer and you're like clicking all of these little things, right? And you have to read them. And it's just like, my sellers go cross-eyed over this, okay? The number one thing that is literally 95% always answered wrong. Number 9, common interest communities. Are any common areas like sidewalk, walkways, co-owned with any others, or a homeowner association which has authority over the property? Every single home that's in an HOA needs to have this question answered yes. Okay, so this one, where was this? Eclair did not have an HOA. So this was answered properly. But this is always answered wrong. So they'll check no, or they'll check yes. And does anybody know what you have to do for any questions on here that are checked yes? What do you have to do for every single yes question?
Provide explanations.
Yep, you have to come over here to page 3, and you have to say, you have to literally explain every single thing. So if you check yes to number 9, yes, you have to come over here and say number 9, yes, home is in HOA. Silly, but necessary. Okay. Does it have any common interest? Well, oh, this was incorrect. But they did use an explanation anyways. So that is something to note. Like I said, 95% of them are answered incorrectly. So either our assistants will catch it, the listing agent will catch it, or the buyer's agent will catch it, or it will go uncaught. Hopefully not. Hopefully you're being very diligent about this. But yes, this is a form that is very tedious. I mean, it's just box after box after box after box. Okay. So this is the SRPDs, and the SRPDs mean seller real property disclosure form. The buyers have 2 years after they purchase the property to go after the seller for some defect that they knew about and didn't disclose on this form. So it's very important. Okay. And if you're walking through and you see, or the seller explains issues to you about the home. So say you're walking through the home and and there's a huge patch on the ceiling, and you're like, you ask the seller, what was this? I want to be able to talk to the buyers about it. And they tell you, well, the roof fell in, or Santa Claus came and the roof caved in, you know, like that was 4 years ago. And then they fill out these forms, this SRPDs, and it's not noted on here. You best be going back to your seller and letting them know that the consequences of not disclosing something on these forms. So when a buyer goes after a seller for anything that's not disclosed on the SRPDs, and they can prove that they knew about it, what can they sue for? What's it called? Anybody know? They can sue for treble damages, which means it's triple the amount of the actual damages. Okay, so these forms are super important to keep on the up and up, and you cannot assist your sellers when filling them out. You can just come back after they're done and be like, hey, we need to correct this. All right, so next is the MLS descriptions. I like to write them in here. So I just come to the bottom of the note and I write the descriptions. Fun fact, I had ChatGPT write this description for me. So I just put in a couple little blurbs about it and I said, make it sound beautiful. Took me 2 seconds. Super awesome. And it was just a little 2-bedroom house, nothing special to it. And it sounded just absolutely glamorous in this little post. So definitely something you want to look into helping you out. You also want to put a lockbox on the property. I like to do this at the listing appointment. Sometimes my listings are super far away. I'm running around all day long, or I'm on my computer, you know, lead generating. So I like to take the lockbox and put it on right when I get there. You can give them a 1-day code to put the key in it. Super easy. Sign ordered. So all these things, guys, these happen after the listing agreement is signed. You don't want to put your time into things or anything and then have them decide, oh, I'm not going to list. So this happened to me with a $1.6 million listing in Red Rock. And she's been thinking, oh, I'm going to list. Okay, I'm ready to list. Sent her the listing agreement. She didn't sign it yet, but we do need special signs in Red Rock Country Club. So I had my special sign made. Sure enough, she told her kids she was selling, and the kids started crying, made a huge scene, and she's not selling anymore. So now I have a Red Rock Country Club sign that I made for no reason. No big deal. I'll get another listing in there. Sign ordered. I do use Rapid Signs, which is Brett. And I need to stay on top of him sometimes. So I have 2 check boxes for this: sign ordered and then sign completed. Then I like to post things as coming soon on the MLS. I do like to make sure that I have at least a week or 2 of drumming up business with the coming soon status, if my sellers have time to do that. I do like to list on Wednesdays or Thursdays. Thursdays in the more busy market, Wednesdays in the less busy market, maybe Mondays in a really down market. This way we drum up business for the weekend. Remember that days on market really will run your listing, guys, because first weekend on the market right now, what's happening? A nice listing, we are getting multiple offers on a lot of listings going live that first weekend. Now, what I'm also seeing right now is once that first weekend goes by, that home's usually on the market for at least 30 days. Okay, so the first weekend is super important. If you can drum up that business for that first weekend, get multiple offers in there, get multiple buyers in at the same time, schedule 2 buyers at the same time, guys. What does that do? What does that psychologically say to both of the buyers? There's a lot of competition on this house and other people are interested in it. I'm going to need to light a fire under my butt and get an offer in. Okay, so drum up that business. Showing time setup. Guys, I know showing time is part of Zillow, but it really makes your life so much easier. You can even have showing time set as sending the request directly to your seller so that you don't have to have a buyer contact you and then contact your seller and then contact the buyer back. Okay. And when you're very busy, that takes a lot of time. But if you're not as busy and you do like to have those conversations with your seller, by all means, just have showing time set up for you. You just say Y or N in a text message, send it back to showing time. You don't even have to communicate with the buyer's agent. Super simple. So you don't have to remember any new phone numbers or anything. Okay, next we're going to schedule the first and second open house. You can do 2 open houses a weekend. You can do 1 open house a weekend. Some sellers don't like open houses, like Colette's seller that we went on their listing appointment yesterday. She didn't seem too thrilled about an open house idea, but we'll work on her for sure. Buyer secured or contract fully executed. So when you secure that buyer and you have your seller fully execute the contract, that means that both the buyer and the seller have signed a contract. We check this off right here. So you guys do have 4 days to send the SRPDs to the buyer. Just check that off when that's done. Your assistants will handle this for you. Seller info sent to title. So when you do get under contract, each title company wants to know the information of the buyers and sellers. So we want to get that information over to them as soon as possible. And then especially in a hot market. So over the past 3 years or 2 years, I guess, when you went under contract with a buyer, sometimes these due diligence periods were very short and the EMD needed to be in right away and you had multiple offers. So if that EMD doesn't get in the allotted time period that's put in the contract, I these days am putting 3 business days my clients have to get that EMD in. I like that a lot better. They don't have to rush within 24 hours to get to the bank or anything. But in a very hot market and you have multiple offers just simmering on the back burners, and that EMD isn't deposited by the first buyer that you guys selected within the allotted time period, my red flags are going to go off and they're going to say, why is this buyer not performing? Where is the EMD? We have other offers we can move forward with right now instead of seeing these problems and commitments by the buyer be passed up maybe now. And it also signifies something for the later times in the transactions. When we're getting to the repairs request, when we're getting to the due diligence, we don't want to have to extend anything in a contract ever. It happens quite frequently sometimes, but if we don't have to, it's better to not. So if a buyer hasn't deposited their EMD within 3 days or whatever the contract says, my red flags are going up. And your seller can actually cancel the contract. So there's not many ways a seller can get out of a contract. Having the buyer pass one of their obligations per the contract is a very good way to get your seller out of a contract if they're having cold feet. So you can be like, all right, Mr. Seller, I know you're having cold feet about this offer, and we did have a full price offer come in now since we accepted this offer. I'm going to keep tabs on the buyer's EMD. If they don't get it in right within their allotted time period, they are in breach of contract. Your seller can send a cancellation due to failure to perform. Okay. Inspection scheduled. If your seller is living in the property, this is something you'll schedule with them. If not, I don't really reach out to the buyer's agent. That's all their job. If it's a vacant house, they do what they're going to do. If they pass their contingency period and don't get it done, that sucks. It's on them. Inspection complete. HOA docs, usually once the inspection is complete is when I order the HOA docs. You guys got to remember that these HOA docs, okay, a lot of them are ordered on this website, HomeWise Docs.com. So a lot of them, I would say about 80 to 90% of them are ordered through here, unless you're in Summerlin. HomeWiseDocs.com. It does take a while to get these docs. I have no idea why. I think it's one of the biggest rackets besides solar in the real estate community. They charge your clients like $180 to $190 for the HOA demand. and then another 180 to 200 bucks for the resale package. So it is ordered through here, and it does take 10 to 15 days to receive. For whatever reason, I have no idea. No idea why it takes so long. I can't imagine it actually takes more than just clicking a button within their system to send it over. But 10 to 15 days is what it takes. If you do this too late, your seller will have to pay an extra $100 to rush the order. Now, if you have a good relationship with your title company like I do, they do this all for you. No problem. Okay. I never have really actually ordered those myself. Then we go into you renegotiate the request for repairs. What I checked this one off when I received the repairs request, and then I checked this one off when after repairs have been negotiated and everything's been settled and fully executed. I probably actually should add repairs completed by the seller, repair invoices sent to buyer. So once the repairs are completed, you do want to make sure to let your sellers know, hey, you should pass me those invoices, because they'll, number one, be proof that you actually made the repairs, and then the buyers can contact the contractors for whatever they need. Next, we move on to the appraisal. If your buyers or your sellers are living in the property, you will need to schedule that appraisal with them. The appraiser will reach out to you. If it's vacant key any, then the appraiser does have Sentry key access and will just be able to access the property. If the appraisal comes in low, you will have to renegotiate that with your buyer and seller. If it doesn't, you'll just have the buyer's agent will come to you and be like, hey, it came in at value. I'm always curious what it actually came in at. So I try to sweet talk the buyer's agent into telling me. You can do it too if you want to. They tell me about 50% of the time. Maybe I need to hone in my skills on sweet talking them for the appraisal. But it is the buyer's property, and they don't have to share, and a good buyer's agent will not share. So then we want to know the buyer loan is approved or not within their contingency period. And then we want to schedule the seller to sign the deed over to the buyer. And we want to make sure that that walkthrough is received for a completed file. And then we close. Not much to it. In order to receive your pay at winning, you do need to provide proof that the sign has come down and that the lockbox has been returned to the office. So other than that, after closing, there's really nothing that you need to do other than help your seller find a new house. So that is the short presentation on what to do with the seller, because this is why they say in this business, you must list to last. Okay, so listing is something that comes after knowing a lot of buyers. Once you build up your book of business for buyers, you really will start seeing those people come back to you and start asking you to list their properties, or start asking you for comparable market analysis, analysi. I don't know the plural term for that. But yeah, so keep up with your buyers from the past. Make sure that they're keeping in contact with you, asking you questions along the way and stuff like that. So do you guys have any questions on what the process is for a seller, a listing agent, to be a listing agent?
It's not really a question, Lauren, but with my listing, I work directly with the HOA. Well, not HOA. I didn't go through the HomeWise process. It was with Sun City Summerlin, and I just worked with that department, there on their campus.
Yeah. So
it was pretty.
Was it easy or was it tedious? Did you have to drive anywhere? What did you have to do in order to get those HOA docs?
Well, I did have to drive over and pay the fee that was required, and then they did everything else, the delivery, and it was pretty simple. I didn't even know about HomeWise.
See, if I had to drive somewhere to actually just get the HOA docs, I mean, I would have to put that in my calendar and plan a day, like it'd be a whole thing. So working with a title company who does that for you. And also your client should pay. You guys should never take it from me. You should never rely on your client to reimburse you.
Oh, I did get reimbursed though. I told him to use Cash App. I got it back.
No. First of all, get paid through escrow. Second of all, never rely on your clients to reimburse you, because anything could happen. I paid, and in order to get a couple things done in a transaction, my seller was a truck driver. It was a nightmare getting a hold of him, and I needed things to happen. It was so hard to get him to sign anything, to get him to check his email. It was not fun. And I ended up being like, screw it, I'm just paying for it. Like, I paid for things to get done. I paid for repairs to get done. I paid for the HOA docs to get done. I was out of pocket maybe like $700, and it was nearly impossible to get this money from this guy or get him to even respond. He did happily at the end just sign an addendum that said I was going to get paid through close of escrow, but it was like down to the last hours before we were closing. And then I've had another seller who ended up just taking their home off the market and not selling at all, due to market conditions being too tough. This was last year, and I paid like $550 for something. I was okay with it, whatever. Like, I did it as a gesture of trust, but like, you guys don't be doing that. Don't be me. Just don't be paying for anything for your sellers. Don't rely on getting reimbursed. Sometimes it doesn't happen. Do we have any other questions about the listing process? Any comments? What have you guys, who has had a listing here besides Colette? Anyone? So it usually comes later in your career. That's if you're not working actively to get listings. And how do we work actively to get listings, guys? Let's hear it. Everybody unmute. Tell me how, if you had a life or death situation and you needed to get a listing in 30 days, what would you do?
Cold call.
Okay. Cold calling is a good one. Who are we cold calling? Networking on your own, door knocking. Who would we call? Who's the best people to cold call for new listings? I would say, and I mean, it's totally an opinion because we all work differently. We all have a different career path. We all are good at different things. But if I had to get a listing in 30 days and it was a life or death situation, the most bang for your buck is going to be cold calling expired listings from before the pandemic. Okay, so these are people that were like, maybe we're thinking about it, put their home on the market, or even withdrawn listings from right before the pandemic, 2018, 2019. These are people who wanted to sell but didn't. Maybe they redid their home during the pandemic. Maybe they wanted to sell during the pandemic, but they didn't have enough money to pay over ask on any properties, or there wasn't anything available that was even remotely affordable. These people are highly likely to list at this point in time. Okay. My next best way to get a listing in 30 days would be holding open houses and door knocking right before. Okay. So actually being able to make contact in an area. So if you guys use the Fidelity Farm or Tycor Live Farm app, you can actually go on there and make circles in certain areas and see what the turnover rate is. A turnover rate is the frequency in which somebody on average sells in a certain area. So a turnover rate with 6% or higher is actually very, very good. This is going to be a very active area in which people move a lot. So one of those areas that I know sticks out in my mind is Mountain's Edge. People move in and out of there all the time. People with families, they actually love that school down there, the middle school called Tarkanian. People move there just for the middle school. So they'll have all their kids go through the middle school and then they'll move out again. So if you guys want a highly active area, definitely go down and do some open houses and start farming in the Mountain's Edge area. Okay. See what else we got in the chat going on here. Oh, divorce. Yes, divorce. Networking with divorce lawyers, taking divorce lawyers to lunch, or going to divorce convention or divorce conventions, lawyer conventions. I don't think they have divorce conventions yet. I'm sure it'll be a thing. Divorce parties are definitely on the rise. But yeah, definitely a great way. Another thing, another little secret I think that somebody should start working on is starting a partnership with an old folks home. So if you guys like working with the older crowd, they're very sweet, very awesome. It's a lot of driving because you'll get a lot of wet signatures. But if you network with the managers at assisted living homes for people who are moving in there, definitely want to start putting your name out there. That way you could get a listing very easily. And that could be a rolling relationship with multiple different assisted living homes in Las Vegas. I think it would be an absolute awesome way to start getting some listings. All right, anybody else have any questions or anything to add? Any comments, concerns, any stories about what happened this week? Wait, I had a story. What was I going to tell you guys? I had a story. I forget what it was. I told you guys I would tell you today.
I have a quick,
What's up? Let's hear it.
when you say to link up with the managers or partner in with those homes, is it for people who need to sell prior to moving in? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, so when these people move into the assisted living homes, they pretty much all own properties already. But they need assisted living. They're just getting to that age. So they do need to end up selling that property in order to move in and just move on with their life. What was the thing that I had a story for you guys, and did I put it in the chat? Man. Well, if nobody else remembers the story, I guess I'll just tell it in the chat when I remember what it was. Oh, I got the offer accepted over 24. I got an offer accepted yesterday. What the listing had 24 offers, and it was listed at 199. It was a townhome, and the highest offer was 220. My client's offer was 201. I won the deal for them. So how did I do this? First of all, I called the listing agent and I had multiple conversations with her. I built that rapport. Okay, we're in sales. We don't only have to build rapport with our clients, we also should build rapport with every agent around us. You guys have to remember that when working with an agent, you're working with them to come to an agreement. Your sellers are maybe fighting and bickering, but they can't communicate with each other. And the reason that we have agents is to help with negotiations and keep that separation so that two people can logically talk from a third person point of view about what's best and where the middle ground is between these two people. So my buyers are very difficult. They were looking at homes that were priced between 199 and like 250, and they literally always wanted to put in offers that were absurdly low. And so I kind of like just put them on the back burner. I gave them a BBA. They had what
was that Hans? Was that Hans?
Yeah, Hans and Willette. So
okay.
these people also talked me out of charging them a brokerage fee. So in turn for taking that brokerage fee off, because when we don't charge a brokerage fee, you guys, who's responsible for it? We are. I pay it out of my pocket. Now I have a slight advantage because I capped, which means I don't pay in anything more to the brokerage. So my brokerage fee is actually only $295 instead of $495. But in my negotiations with them and them having an issue with that, because that's when I send the duties owed, they see the brokerage fee. So they're like, we don't know what this is. We don't want to pay it. I explained what it is and why they need to pay it. Then they still said, oh, the other agents that we were working with before didn't have this. And I was like, okay, now I know you're working with other agents. Let's see what we can do. So I was like, look, I don't usually take this off unless somebody signs, that I am going to work for their agent. I said, I work very hard for my clients and my time is valuable and so is yours. And I would hate to see, either one of us waste our time. So let's just make a commitment to each other now. I've already shown you a bunch of houses. I've shown you what my team can do. I think that we're going to work very well together. Let's just make a commitment to each other right now. I will commit that I will not charge you a BAC fee and I will take that out of my pocket if you commit to staying my client. And then I got them to sign the BBA. And I usually get that done right before I send an offer. But this time I was able to get it done way before. They ended up sticking with me as their client. And now here we are putting in offers again, but their offers were significantly lower. They were almost wholesale level offers. And it was impossible to get them to feel like any home was valuable to them. So they finally came back out of the woodworks, saying that they wanted to see another property. It was on the market for 4 days. And I was like, oh God, here we go again. Anyways, I looked up the property. I looked at the facilities and everything. And I got them to make an offer. I spent an hour with them at this one property. I walked them around the neighborhood. I showed them the tennis courts. I showed them the pool. And I just made sure to highlight the good things about it. And I made sure not to shy away from the negative things about it. But I can honestly tell you that this property was really cute. And for $199, it was in pristine condition. So that helped. And it did have a garage. So I kept on telling them how valuable that was. And then I couldn't get a hold of the listing agent for the longest time. So I finally sent a kind of semi-rude message. I said, hello, ? And she finally answered. She's like, so sorry, I've been with clients all day. And then when I talked to her on the phone, she divulged way too much information. She did let me know that she does not usually facilitate transactions. She was just doing this for a friend. So again, bing, all of that went off in my head and I knew exactly how to sell her on choosing my client's offer. I got her to tell me everything about all the other offers before I wrote an offer, just became friends with her, helped her out, told her a little things about how to do things. I taught her some things. She did also let me know that she's going out of town April 9th and was very nervous about that. I kept on telling her how much I could step in for her, how I could do everything for her. I mean, I showed her my checklist of everything that you need to do in a listing. And she was, she was like, oh my God, well, I'm happy to work with you. Here's what the other offers are. If you can come in and beat it, I can definitely try to help push my seller in that direction so that we work together. And I was like, yes. She also let me know that out of 24 offers, only 6 agents called her. Okay. Always call the listing agent, build that rapport. So if I'm now, even though there's 24 offers, I'm really only up against 6, right? In the listing agent's mind. So I narrowed it down to 6 and the highest offer, one of those 6 people was a 220. And then I started putting things in her head about, well, what if it doesn't appraise and this, that, the other. So then the next phone call I had with her was like, well, it turns out my seller is worried about the appraisal. So all the ones that are lower have closing costs involved in them and your clients does not. So that was another selling point. I sold her on my offer saying, look, my clients don't need closing costs. They are a stronger buyer and they're putting 20% down. All of these factors got the seller's agent to agree that my client's offer was the best, even though it was $19,000 under the highest offer. Okay. And even though it was $19,000 under the highest offer, the highest offer also did have $5,000 in closing costs. So it was really $14,000 under the highest offer. Anyways, that's all the net sheet inside with the seller. So using all of those points and all of those factors, it helped my clients win the bid. Another thing that helped my clients put in a full price bid was, us experiencing being up against other offers and other homes, and me being real with them and being firm and not being afraid to say, you are going to get shut down every time. I will continue to show you homes. You can continue to put in offers of this price. But as you've experienced before, it's just going to keep happening. And like we made those commitments to each other in the beginning to not waste each other's time, I'm letting you know so that I don't continue to waste your time. So from here on out, why don't we do this? Why don't we put in offers before you see the properties so that you can, experience that what these sellers are thinking in today's market and seeing what you're up against. So I got them to put in a couple offers without seeing properties. I did make them more comfortable with that by putting a clause in the contract saying offer is subject to viewing. Just some tips and tricks, guys. I'm just rambling now about what I've been doing this week, but does anybody have any questions about that?
Yes. What did the home end up appraising for?
We just went under contract yesterday and we found out from the lender that it's so much down below what the market values are in that area anyways, that we don't even need to get an appraisal. So
wow.
it's called an appraisal waiver. So when the home is valued a lot over what the offer comes in at, the lenders can send what's called an appraisal waiver, and it is up to them. It's not up to the buyer. It's up to the lender whether they waive that appraisal or not. Any more questions, comments, concerns, stories?
I'm just
before-
happy that. Correct.
Happy that what?
I'm just happy they're on the contract.
Oh my God, me too. You guys, Nancy showed them a ton of homes for me. And it was definitely a team effort. So I'm so grateful that I have you, Nancy. And she helped kind of nudge them too, because I pay Nancy $50 per door to show homes for me. She's very, very, very good. And, she lets me know every detail. She keeps very organized notes in a spreadsheet on what they thought of each property. And she called me and she's like, look, they're thinking like, what was it? Their price at $250 and they want to put in offers at $150.
In the
Like,
ones, yeah.
and that's when I'm like, oh shit. Okay. So here I am paying her like $500 for showings, 10 houses. They want to see every house. I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna have to eat these costs and then find out, and then really and after I eat these costs, I'm going to get them to put in multiple offers on multiple homes, and they're going to see and experience the pain of losing out on homes that they really like because they're offering too low. And it worked.
Yeah, they were ridiculous. They were very ridiculous.
I actually honestly didn't think that I was going to have them as a client under contract at any point in my career. I fully expected them to just go to other agents or like whatever, but
Good job.
we rolled with it.
Good job.
Crazy career we got. All right, any more questions, comments, concerns, funny stories, horror stories?
To pull out of the offer during the due diligence, it doesn't really take anything except, is it another form?
It's just a cancellation of escrow. And the more details you give to the listing agent as the buyer's agent, the more you're shooting yourself in the foot. Because you're just there. Your buyer can cancel for any reason. They wake up and they sneeze wrong and they don't want to have that house anymore. They can back out. So what I like to say is that, I just say buyer has decided to cancel. And if the listing agent digs, because they will, as a listing agent, you want to know. I always try to dig and find out. And then I've had some agents come back to me and start saying that I can't do that or whatever. And I know I'm within my rights. I just don't want to start that conversation. Like, it just doesn't matter. My buyer just changed their mind. That's it. They just changed their mind, decided against this house, decided they didn't want it. Okay. So the less details you can give as a buyer's agent, the better. You don't want to shoot yourself in the foot for anything. Any other questions? All right, you guys, I will be uploading this to YouTube for your review if you would like. And other than that, have an absolutely kick-ass day, everybody. Bye.
Bye, and thank you. Sorry, my camera wasn't on.
No problem. I'll see you guys soon.
Bye.
Bye.